Rules of St Benedict concerning sexual abuse. Benedict says there are 4 types of monks, 2 that are good and 2 that are bad. Cenobite and the anchorite are 2 types of monk. The Cenobite is a monk and the anchorite is a hermit. These are the 2 good types of monks. From the Cenobite you can go to the anchorite because it prepares you in the later stages.
Gyrovag.
And the Sarabites are 2 types of monk that St Benedict really doesn't like. And in his opening book, the rule book, he goes into them and tells everybody how bad they are. In his book, he talks about
Gyrovag.
and he says, these spend their whole lives tramping from province to province, staying as guests at different monasteries for 3 or 4 days at a time. Always on the move with no stability, they indulge their own wills, succumb to the allurement of gluttony, one of the 7 deadly sins, and are in every way worse than the Sarabites. Of the miserable conduct of all such, it is better to be silent than to speak. Words and a lot of hatred there for someone that's supposed to be holy. Basically, he's describing free wanderers, freeloaders, people that we sort of say are gypsies, I suppose. And we all know what the hatred is towards those gypsies that camp on our greens with those little caravans, making mess everywhere and sending a shiver into middle-class Britain. The Gyrovag is a wanderer that wants a free lunch. The god of travelling is Hermes, and he is also the god of the thief. The traveller is a completely different person. The real traveller, the real explorer, the real gypsy, are completely different to the vagabond gypsies, the vagabond travellers, the vagabond searchers. And St. Benedict doesn't make a distinction here, and that is very sad. Travel is about communication. Holy men seek communication, and God works in mysterious ways. And to allow that magical, weird mysteriousness, one must allow synchronicity. And synchronicity works best when you travel because there's movement, not when you stay still, like in a monastery. That's not to say monastery is bad, but it does say that you need both. In my travels, I've met people that have like wishy-washy philosophy. I call it tutti frutti philosophy because they pluck little bits out of the library of theosophy, theology, Hinduism and Christianity. They sprinkle a little bit of Jesus, they've got a little bit of Madame Blavatsky, they put a little bit of tarot cards on it, and then they put a little bit of ice cream to the side, which is called Buddha. And then they sort of amalgamate it in one great big dish like a fruit salad. And when you have a hardcore philosophy that comes along and then starts to ask them pertinent questions about their ideology that they've meshed together, they usually hide away glibly, pull out a marijuana joint and say, yeah man, it's just about being free, just relax dude and enjoy life. And they sort of have this hedonistic attitude about them, this laissez-faire attitude, which serious people sometimes don't like. But that doesn't mean to say that all travelers, all seekers are like that. And you get very serious people that go around and travel, because traveling is about opening your mind. What person that hasn't traveled the world and seen great things hasn't learned? Although if you take a wise man traveling, you make him wiser. And if you take a stupid man traveling, you make him more stupid. That sort of proves my point. You get people that don't want to learn, that aren't serious, that are wishy-washy, and you get people that are serious, and those people learn by traveling, and they get tarnished by the same brush as the people, a larger percent of people that give them a bad name, a bit like the gypsy folk. Now, those travelers are really clever because they read everything. They're interested in everything. They're interested in Zoroastrianism, the Persians, the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Hare Krishna, the mystical schools, the Egyptians. They're interested in the plant medicines, the sacred texts from Mexico. They're interested in the Christianity, the Islam, the Judaism, the Kabbalah, and they read everything. They don't just concentrate on one tiny fraction. They look at everything. And some people might say, yeah, but they don't have a point of view. Well, maybe they don't. But maybe they got something else and it's called wisdom. And maybe having a point of view can actually be quite dangerous. But actually having an understanding of something is very important. And being wishy-washy, spinning plates and not knowing where anything is sort of like a mishandling of those energies. Life is its own university and it has its own synchronicity. And in order to be part of the world, you actually have to live life. You can't shut yourself away all the time. You need to get out, you see. You need to have life experience. And sometimes with monks, there is this naivety, this infantileness, this non-understanding of the reality of the world, as if the monastery has created its own very own Garden of Eden. And that's unhealthy and it's unhelpful and it's bad to people. People need to grow. Now, I don't know if this infantileness has grown out of modernity, because the modern monks, they seem not to be as into things as perhaps the monks in the past were. They have their credit cards and their cars. And in the past, the monks, they used their bodies. Using your body, working with your body is actually very important for spiritual growth. And the monks today, they don't do that. They pay workers to do jobs for them. And I would have thought that the days of St Benedict, when he had a monastery, are very different from today. And the menial jobs, the tough jobs, the jobs that you had to do with your body, they actually contributed to the monastic life, which now doesn't exist in most cases. I've seen this particularly in the Western monasteries, but if you go to the Eastern monasteries, the Buddhist and the Hindus, all the monks sort of get involved. All the monks are busy. All the monks are working with gardens. They're making things. They're cutting stone. They're doing stuff, because the interaction with job, the interaction with reality, is where you can you can use those spiritual teachings to contemplate. William Blake, I think, said that through a grain of sand you can understand the world. And so through these jobs, doesn't have to be menial jobs like washing, but it can be other jobs, you can start to understand greater things. The micro and the macro combine. St. Benedict goes on to accuse them of not having a shepherd. Not everybody needs a shepherd, and sometimes it's very important to be shepherdless in order for your own growth, in order to be lost. Being found all the time doesn't develop skills that help you. And to tell everybody that they need to have a shepherd isn't correct. Some people do not need a shepherd. Some people need shepherds for parts of their lives. Some people need different shepherds because they outgrow teachers. Sometimes they outgrow all teachers and they become the shepherd. And St. Benedict doesn't mention this. He says you need to have a shepherd, not many shepherds, not shepherds sometimes, not to be your own man. So it seems as if he wants to control the process of spirituality. And he doesn't offer another type of spirituality to do with the wanderer. He really doesn't like these people that wander. Traveling puts you under unforeseen pressures, takes away your security, and offers you thoughts that you would never have encountered. What traveler has not learnt from traveling the world? It seems these travelers were freeloaders. Benedict does not praise the serious traveler. Freedom will see the best and the worst in people. If you don't let people fail, you don't let people succeed. Benedict offers a middle path which asks man to submit to another man instead of being free. Although freedom can exist in your mind and body are related. I do see Benedict's point, but do we not accuse gypsies of the same thing, being annoying travelers? Referring to cenobite, or the monk activity, it proceeds to draw up a plan for the strong kind. What is a strong monk? The Benedictine monk across the world is now weak. What is he talking about? I don't see any strength in monks anymore. The Benedictine monks across the world seem to have fallen in weakness or sexual abuse and cover-up at all levels. He accuses the hated monks in chapter 1, verse 7, still loyal to the world by their actions. They clearly lie to God by their tonsure. Tonsure is when you cut a bit of hair away that makes you look bald. The monk Cenobites has become the Cerebite and the Gyrovag. Loyal to an order to cover up abominable crimes, does the Cerebite or the Gyrovag do that? In effect, Benedict has created something worse than what he hates. The abbots of St. Benedict's lie to God, the community, and this is strong. Benedict may think that purity comes from community living, but it seems like there's a virus in the community and has been for a very long time. Referring to the hated type of monk, their law is what they like to do, whatever strikes their fancy. Anything they believe in and choose, they call holy. Anything they dislike, they consider forbidden. Is that not how his monks see sexual abuse? The law of monks is now more than the law of the land, where the monks in his monastery, even the abbots, cover up, withhold evidence from the police, burn evidence of children that have been sexually abused. Who is he talking to? The monks that he hates. What is actually wrong becoming your own man, your own law, and free? Had the monks been taught how to be like that, they might have stood up for the children when they saw sexual abuse happening. The issue is how you become your own man. Maybe you can do it through community living, because the community living has pressures and difficulties that being free doesn't. But having freedom has its pressures and difficulties that living in a community doesn't. And St Benedict is biased towards community living. How can you give your obedience to an abbot that promotes, hides, protects paedophiles? How can you forfeit your nature? How can you go against God? And that is what creates a perversion in the monk's mind, when you are obedient to somebody that goes against God. Because what you are starting to participate in is demiurge, devil activity. Because the sexual abuse of children is a child sacrifice. And it's something that's come from Seth, Monarch, Baal, or the other gods that are mentioned in the Bible. And this type of child sacrifice is basically devil worship. That's where devil worship has come from. And so when you see the acts that are performed in devil worship happening in your monastery under the abbot who prefers to keep the reputation more than the good of God, and your obedience and your silence are part of that solidification to protect the monks that are abusing boys, that are indulging in activities that are used for satanic worship, your psychology goes to shot. You're not going to become a spiritual person because the virus is in the monastery and you're going to become ill. St. Benedict may ask you to give yourself to someone else, but you better know who you're giving yourself up to. And giving yourself up is actually a form of opening, because opening means you can receive. But what are you receiving? The act of opening shouldn't be a mandatory act, a permanent act. Opening is perhaps coming from the chakras. It's coming from the heart chakra. It's when you open, but you have to close as well. Because when you open, you have to put filters to stop letting the bad stuff come in. The good stuff can come in, but also the bad stuff. So you have to learn how to filter. St. Benedict never teaches you about that. He asks you, it seems, to keep your chakra, your heart chakra, permanently open without a filter. And that's when the perversion comes in. And he doesn't show you a way of healing either, because this is a metaphysical problem. And as we know, the metaphysics in Christianity were killed with the Gnostics. Real spirituality is about intelligence, not about academia. A lot of the monks are academic. It's about being intelligent. Intelligent is about being clever and smart. The Holy Spirit is smart. He's not academic. The Holy Spirit acts quickly, and he acts with wrath if he needs to. And the monks need to learn that. They need to be more dynamic in their spirituality. And what seems is that they've become a museum religion where they rest their laurels on the past without actually understanding the spirit of spirituality. So when they go and perform their masses, it becomes a theatre. And when the mass is finished, the theatre ends and they go back to what they were at the beginning. The monk needs to learn how to act without God. And that's part of the preparation of spirituality, because God's with you and then he's without you. And when you're being tested, God is without you. So you need to learn how to think for yourself. And that comes from the Holy Spirit. It comes from being smart. It comes from being able to be diverse, quick thinking, intuitive. That's the Holy Spirit. And that is being suppressed in the monasteries. Chapter 1, verse 12. It is better to keep silent than to speak of all these and their disgraceful way of life. No. When someone is bad, you should speak up. I disagree with St. Benedict. When you see something wrong, you need to speak, because your silence helps the devil carry out his work.